Hey guys, it's Jambros, and I'm back with my fourth video as part of my series of the loot guide for physical DPS in Phase 3 and Phase 4. Today I'll be doing Beast Mastery Hunter. Hopefully this should give all you hunters out there a good idea of what items are best for you, which ones are still good for you, and which ones you don't really want to touch. To start out with a few of the sims and parameters and different methodology I used, I did use Six's simulator. He did a great job with this, really easy to use. Very clear. I also used a lot of resources from Veramos, who posts on the Hunter Discord. He almost did all the work anyways. I still used my own numbers, just because I wanted to keep all the different parameters between all the different classes correct. Speaking of which, I did use a Night Elf. Everything is 180-second duration for all the fights, just like all the other classes. 7,700 armor, humanoid boss. It's all purely single target. All appropriate buffs, raid buffs, no battle chickens, and no melee weaving, which is a big part of this. There's no melee weaving involved. The top 3 items of the tier per slot will be simmed for comparison, with some exceptions for like ring and trinket combinations. All these sims used complete gear sets and didn't just sim individual items. So for example, if changing gems around to optimize for hit rating, or different pieces to make up for hit rating, for example, or 2-piece or 4-piece bonuses. The Tier 5 BIS is used to simulate the opening of Mount Hyjal and Black Temple, and what will be the biggest upgrades right off the bat. Because of that, Tier 5 stuff will use rare gems, except for the replaced item, which will be able to use epic gems. Same thing from when I sim from Tier 6 downwards. They will all use epic gems because they'll be available once Phase 3 releases. Alright, so we'll get going with the talents here. This is a very basic spec, 4120. This is the Tier 5 BIS, which uses a 4-piece Tier 5, so you'll have to break that at some point when you want to upgrade everything. Tier 6 does use a 4-piece as well. Speaking of which, as a side note, Hunters probably used more items from Phase 4, Zulaman, than any of the other classes I did anything with. Notice the 2 daggers, the ring, and the trinket. Before we start comparing individual items in the slots, Hunters had a pretty hard time navigating the hit cap. There's a lot of different pieces you can replace. I ranked them here for hit pieces and non-hit pieces. The number 1 hit piece I like to use was the Choker of Endless Nightmares. That adds hit, so if you replace anything that takes away hit, this is your best substitute piece. Second to that is the Boneweave Girdle, and third of that is Madness of the Betrayer. With the non-hit pieces, if you really wanted to drop hit, the Cloak slot was the best place to do this, as that one is from Phase 2, and the other is an easy-to-get item from Phase 4. For the Helm slot, we've got Cursed Vision of Sargeras coming in at number 1, well ahead of its second place Forest Prowler's Helm, just like all the other physical DPS classes. However, Forest Prowler's Helm, keep that item in mind. It is a good second option for your off-piece once you get Tier 6. There's one other option, which we'll get to when we get to that slot. Tier 6 Helm is not particularly great, has MP5 on it. Kind of falls behind between all the other options. You can see here too in full BIS, Forest Prowler's Helm is still 21 whole DPS behind Cursed Vision of Sargeras, but you could do worse. That's just such a strong item. All the necks here, they're all really close. This is one of the most changed out slots, which you'll balance around your hit rating. They all have some merits. They're all within just a few DPS of each other. Same thing in full BIS. Serrated Blades has armor pen, Endless Nightmares has hit, and the Telonicus pendant from Phase 2 is just a really strong item in general. Serrated Blades will be the best the more armor pen you have, or if you really need the hit, that'll be valued more. You'll use Endless Nightmares more. Or if you need neither or have a lower amount of armor pen, the Phase 2 BIS will still be BIS. For the shoulders, The tier 6 is really the way to go here. The Akama, Shade of Akama shoulders can have a little bit of value right off the bat, but the leatherwork and crafted ones are just really, really far behind. And in full best, they fall way behind. Nothing comes close. Tier 6 is really the only way to go and the only item that you should be replacing your old shoulders with in this slot. The cloak slot is another one of those more interchangeable item slots. As you can see here, straight up from phase 2, none of these are actual upgrades. They're all a few DPS loss. That changes once you get more better items here in tier 6. With the exception of Cloak of Fiends, the cloak, which is good for so many other classes, is just really not good for hunters. But the Shadow Moon Destroyer Straight from Terran Gorefiend, technically Biss, does have hit, which can be changed out for your other non-hit options, which is your Still Biss item from phase 2, the Thalassian Wilder Cloak, and in phase 4, there's a Badge of Justice item called Dory's Embrace, which actually has Armor Pen. Those can be pretty interchangeable depending on the rest of your gear. For the chest, just like the cloak slot, none of these are upgrades right off the bat. The tier 6 chest is close and will end up being your best item through phase 3 and phase 4. The others are not really. In fact, they come in so far behind that you're looking at losing 40 DPS or more. So the tier 6 item is really your only item that you really can replace here in phase 3 and phase 4. The wrists, you do have a good immediate upgrade. The Insidious bands off of Terran Gorefiend. Unfortunately, the crafted bracers are not better. It's only about a 1 DPS upgrade off the bat, and the leatherworking Swift Strike bracers are actually a DPS loss, and they fall farther behind in tier 6 Biss, more than 20 from the Insidious bands. For the gloves, it's going to be one of those things that are not even close to a contest. They provide an immediate upgrade, and all the other options are huge downgrades right off the spot, which is only exacerbated in full tier 6 Biss, which is over 70 DPS loss. It's wild. It doesn't even come close. The hit and the armor pen on tier 6 is just too good, even though the other ones are haste rating, which is kind of a big problem for hunters. For the belt, you'll be replacing your phase 2 Biss of a Deep Shadow with a couple options. The Money Belt and the Boneweave Girdle are both really good. The Veil Stalker is not really worth talking about. It's just really far behind. And in tier 6 Biss, they're still really close, within 1 DPS. And I would really encourage you to try to pick up the Boneweave Girdle if possible. Having an item with that extra hit rating offers you a lot of flexibility, even if the Money Belt is technically your best. For the legs, this was your previous off piece. As you'll see here, the tier 6 legs are technically a decrease right off the bat, with the best item coming in for the bow stitch leggings. In full tier 6 Biss, you'll want to use the tier 6. You really want the 4-piece. In fact, the bow stitch leggings start falling behind. However, it's actually comparatively close. This is your other option for an offs piece slot. It's either this or the Helm. Cursed Vision is a really contested piece. If you're not able to get it, using your off piece for bow stitch leggings is an option. Either way, if nobody else needs them, they're a big upgrade right off the bat, and then you can relegate them if you need to and end up using tier 6 later. You have a couple options here for your boot slot. By a pretty big margin, Shadow Master's boots is going to be your biggest DPS upgrade. However, soft step boots may be a valuable item to pick up just to acquire the extra hit rating piece to allow you a little more flexibility in moving your gear around the hit cap. They're not super close, but relatively close in tier 6 Biss, about a full 10 DPS behind. Unfortunately, Shadow Master's boots are a little more contested items, so they maybe will maybe worth being picked up anyways. The soft staff boots. Finally, you'll be able to replace that ring from all the way back in Phase 1, the Magtheridon ring, which was paired with the Band of the Ranger General in Phase 2. There are 3 upgrade paths here. The Storm Rage Signet Ring, the Signet of Primal Wrath, which comes from Zul'Aman, and then also the Mount Hyjal Rep Ring. Surprisingly, the Storm Rage Ring was not a huge DPS increase right off the bat. Upon reflection, it's because it carries so much hit rating, and in your tier 5 BIS, you already have like a bit of an excess amount of hit rating, so it doesn't appear to be as big of an upgrade. The Band of Devastation doesn't even really come close, and is trash. Both of these rings that you were using previously are about the same strength. It's just a matter of balancing for hit rating. These numbers were almost the exact same as the one before. Now this was really interesting in full tier 6 BIS, which I used the Storm Rage and the Signet of Primal Wrath. What actually came up ahead in the end of Phase 4 was the Signet of Primal Wrath and the Band of the Eternal Champion by about 4 to 5 DPS. Leads me to believe that the Storm Rage Signet Ring was not as good previously. This does involve adding more hit items. You're losing 30 hit rating by taking off the Storm Rage Signet Ring. You'd probably be replacing like the Bone Weave Girdle for your belt and the Choker of Endless Nightmares, so you're replacing a couple slots for that. However, it's still really close within 5 DPS. I just don't think that the Storm Rage Signet Ring would be much more of a huge priority, especially if you're considering replacing it and you have all those other items in Phase 4. Dragon Spine Trophy is still king of your trinkets. However, it's getting a lot closer here towards the end of Phase 4. Berserker's Call is really, really good. And that and Madness and the Betrayer comes up only like 2 DPS short of Berserker's Call and the DST combination. Madness and the Betrayer will be your BIS in Phase 3. You would just replace it with Berserker's Call in Phase 4. The Ash Tongue Talisman and the Bloodlust Brooch don't really match up. They're just a little too far behind. For your main hand weapon, previously we're using Talon of the Phoenix and then the Claw of the Phoenix for your offhand. One of your biggest upgrades actually is from Zul'Aman. It's a dagger and it is armor pen, so it definitely makes it quite a bit better. In full tier 6 BIS, the other items kind of come behind a little bit. Boundless Agony will be your BIS in Phase 3, and Rage doesn't really match up. For your offhand, since those daggers are not unique, you're actually able to use 2 of them. So it'll be your number 1 option. The Blade of Infamy here will come in your second BIS, which will be BIS in Phase 3. And your weapon. Your number 1 item is going to be the Bristle Blitz Striker from Archimond. It's going to be your biggest upgrade from the Vash Bow. The Black Bow of the Betrayer will be your second BIS. It really just depends on which one drops first and how many other hunters you have in your raid. They're both good. It's just the Archimond Bow comes out a little ahead. In full BIS, the Serpent Spine Longbow actually measures up a little bit. It's just the other 2 are just better. A bit of a summary here. These are your useless items that were simmed out. Things you're really never going to want to use. The leatherwork and crafted stuff, the shoulders and the bracers you'll never want. The Ash Tongue Deathsworn Trinket, which is a rep item from Black Temple. Surprisingly, the Zul'Aman Cloak is not very good, which is actually in demand for so many other physical DPS classes. That and like the Grips of Damnation as well, which is actually a pretty hotly contested item. These are great upgrades if your BIS is not available yet. There's a lot of really good ones here to have. Choker of Endless Nightmares, Dory's Embrace, Boneweave Girdle, Forest Prowler's Helm. These all help you navigate around your hit cap really well, along with being just generally solid items. And these are your highest priority items. Cursed Vision of Sargeras really tops this list. Surprisingly, Tier 6 is really good for the hunters, with no other options for a few slots. Spalders, chest guard, gloves, nothing really comes close. They're massive DPS losses without taking your tier 6 and should be one of the first things you actually go for. There are a few other easier options to get to from Zul'Aman. The Signet, the daggers, With them being 10 mans, these should be more accessible items for you to have. And that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I had a lot of fun making this video. You can follow me on Twitch as well. I stream all of my raids. Feel free to tell me how good I'm doing, bad I'm doing. You can chat with me if you have any questions there. And thanks for watching.